Hello and welcome to the next episode of Forward Finance, the podcast where we navigate the digital age of finance. My name is Jeroen and together with me today are Ravi and Wouter, who is calling in from New York to talk about the latest trends and innovations in regards to digital finance. So I hope you enjoy.
I think it's important for anyone in a finance job to realize that, this is not something what you can ignore. I think you'll have to upskill yourself to work with these tools.
All right, then let's get on with it. Wouter, can you give me a short introduction about yourself and why you are here today with us?
Sure, it's great to be here. Thanks for the invitation. So my name is Wouter Born. I've been a CPM consultant like you, Jeroen, for many years. I at some point co-founded a company called CXO Software. Maybe some of you have heard of it, based in the Netherlands. And the last 3 years of my career as an entrepreneur, I moved to Atlanta to set up a dual headquarter. And that also led to the result of us being acquired by a much bigger financial software company called Inside Software. After the migration of our company into theirs, I took on the lead role to do M&A, mergers and acquisitions, and we acquired a bunch of other companies. Inside Software was very acquisitive. I worked closely together with a private equity company behind it. And in that role, I really got some love for investing. And that led actually to the creation of my own company called Born Capital. We invest in a category we call CFO Tech. You can kind of consider this as a B2B enterprise fintech, but really meant for the CFO and its teams and all the CFO processes in a company. We invest in innovation. We're looking obviously a lot into AI today, but we're also quite conservative with it. Do not invest in hype that is potentially even overhyped. So we're looking very much at products that really add some kind of strategic value to the office of the to the office of the CFO. Some examples in our portfolio are, for example, Glean AI. They're doing spend management and invoice handling, but they really look at creating a better spend culture. So how can you reduce spend? How can you apply AI, for example, to really understand your line item details of an invoice and whether all those seats for a Zoom license are really needed, or whether you're paying the best price. They benchmark it with other customers. So this is just one example. We have 13 portfolio companies today, $10 million assets under management, and we have our headquarters in Palo Alto, near San Francisco in the Bay Area.
Cool. Well, that sounds like a lot of experience today with us in the call. Also, together with me here is Ravi Santokhi. Can you give us a quick introduction about yourself?
Yeah, definitely, Jeroen. So my name is Ravi Santokhi. I work as a lead consultant at Finext, implementing CPM solutions, and more specifically focused on all forward-looking processes. So everything around forecasting and predictive analytics. So I'm really eager to hear about today's story, also around AI, artificial intelligence, and how financials can have benefits from that as well, and how we can practically also implement these type of techniques for our customers. So that's a little bit my background.
Cool. Thank you so much, Rafi, for your introduction as well. The world of finance is completely moving, and over the past 10 years we've seen a lot of groundbreaking innovations. So for starters, a lot of the CPM solutions were first on-premise, and then we transitioned to the cloud, which had of course a major impact on how to finance your projects, how to finance the products that you have in your office. And then we are currently witnessing a lot of developments in AI, autonomous finance, robotic process automation, and maybe more lower to the ground people that are struggling with their data quality and how to address that. So looking at the past 10 years, and I'm specifically interested in how you guys view that. In the past 10 years, we saw a lot of developments. How do you see the next 10 years?
So the way I look at it is, first of all, I think what happened in the past 10 years, topics like data quality or cloud migration, that is not done yet. Still 35 companies, some recent research turned out 35% of the companies use an on-premise ERP system. So there are still, some movements that need to be done. A recent pick A recent Pigment survey showed that 89% of finance leaders are taking inaccurate decisions on inaccurate data. So data quality is a big problem. So I think in the next 10 years we'll really see this continuing trend of data quality improvement and cloud adoption, just to name two of them. But I think a lot of things are not done yet and still require a lot of additional work. But at the same time, I think we see some amazing developments happening. A year ago, no one ever had heard from generative AI or hardly. And today, I looked up some stats, but this year alone, there's been $69 billion of funding into AI startups. Of course, that a lot of that is related to the big ones. OpenAI got a $10 billion investment by Microsoft, but that's a massive part of all startup investments is going to AI. So there is a really big promise in this category. For example, we at Born Capital, we use ChatGPT for a lot of things, and other AI tools. Every meeting I do, I transcript it with a tool called Fireflies. It goes straight into my CRM system, and I can actually interact with an AI interface, conversational interface, and ask any kind of question about my meeting or summarize it in any kind of way, or what do you think that person really meant, and it really is trained on meetings that you would have casual meetings and really give the essence of that meeting, putting things straight into your CRM. Another one is, for example, and I use the Fireflies transcripts for that as well, is due diligence. Like I get roughly 10 pitches a week from promising startups. To really go into depth in every pitch, that's a lot of work. So I trained a custom GPT, a new feature of ChatGPT, where you kind of can train a part of the large language model. I uploaded all our previous investment memos. I uploaded strategy documents of our fund, any kind of analysis we make on portfolio companies. So I give it a lot of data, a lot of custom instructions, and it actually helps me to vet an opportunity and tells me, okay, does this fit within your, just based on a deck I can upload into ChatGPT or a memo or something like that. And it would, it's not 100% reliable yet, but it saves me so much time to quickly just get, okay, hey, this opportunity really matches our strategy on a number of points, and which points are, we need to dive into deeper.
I think currently, looking at the state of the technology of AI, I think nobody really wants to completely trust on the machine itself and have everything done by itself and make the decisions within the machine. So I think I also use it a lot for generating text for marketing, or for example, this podcast episode. I use it for the translation, for example. So it's something of a helping tool which you can use to reduce workload, making yourself more efficient, but it's not yet there on the level that we would want it to be to actually make the decisions and be 100% trustworthy. So I think, is that something you could see in the next 10 years improving to better quality?
Yeah, definitely. I think if you just see ChatGPT, and there are many other great startups that do similar things, but just as an example, within 6 months they moved from ChatGPT 3.5, which was a really smart assistant already, but to ChatGPT 4, which neared the IQ of Einstein. And it had a factor 10 of intelligence increase in 6 months. I think we can expect, in the next 6 months, in the next 12 months, 18 months to see massive developments. And part of it is because you can use the technology to build the next version of the technology. So it has this truly incremental, exponential growth of how it evolves. But I think, what can we, because to get back to your initial question, what can we expect in the next 10 years? Like in terms of real developments. And I think, I've listed a couple of things I think that might be worth sharing. I expect that we will see much more data. We will measure much more data, but we also, the amount of data that we can get, both internal and external, will multiply by a huge factor. I think with AI, we will see that we're capable of doing very powerful analysis on this data, because the data is too much to comprehend for us as humans, and we can actually take decisions of something really more way more extensive data set. The way I'm looking at the next generation of FP&A, financial planning systems, is probably a system that really would understand your strategy as a company, where you could just, conversationally interact with the machine and say, okay, this is how we want to grow our business, and this is how we want to, these are our competitors, and just explain all the, all the aspects of how you're running your company. And with all the data that it will have, it will actually be able to really guide you and help you take better decisions, come to a better outcome, not just plan the future, but basically help you get to a better business outcome. I think that's what I really expect to see in the next 10 years. You already see other interesting trends as well. ChatGPT is extremely good at coding. I actually built a whole chatbot myself, but I'm not a coder, at least not in the past 10 years. And it would just generate the code for me what to do. So it basically helps people with that lack the skills of being able to build something. ChatGPT is actually capable of helping get there to achieve something. And I think that's really going to change something to productivity. People will get much more productive with the tools, but also because the tools can explain how to use the tools. And you will see, because it's good at coding, you will see that software will generate a custom UI for a user. It can actually, a user does a certain job, and it could generate software on the fly for that specific job, completely tailored to that user. It will come with some challenges, of course, if we start doing those things, and we'll overcome them. But I really expect that in technology and enterprise software specifically, we'll see a big shift towards, towards generative AI, being able to code things, to interact with users in a different way, and to take much more holistic, advise a user with a much bigger data set.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so we also see this in the roadmap of the different EPM tools here, where you can start to engage with them with the chat functionality and say, hey, build a screen for me, build a chart for me, and show these data. But I also think of we are all still human, and how long do you think in the next couple of years it will take that adoption will be also there from a human perspective? Because that's the thing what I see from the financial, when I speak to them about AI and how to integrate these kind of techniques. Do you have an idea on that? Maybe, Wouter, can you explain a bit?
Sure. I think there's definitely a switch in skills, I think, among employees needed from there's a lot of things AI will automate, and also not AI. You don't always need AI to automate things. Sometimes just a simple workflow does the job and might work much better than AI. But with the automation of, let's say, more more repetitive, lower educated tasks, there will be a need for people who can operate AI, who can interact with AI, who can test the outcomes of AI, who can deploy AI. And I think it doesn't immediately mean that we'll need less employees at companies. I think it might initially even increase the number of people you would need. But the kind of skills will really be different. I think that people will need, and I think it's important for anyone in a finance job to realize that this is not something what you can ignore. I think you'll have to upskill yourself to work with these tools.
But I can imagine
Ravi?
I think it that rightly covers it. So, but I can imagine that as a financial, it can be also quite daunting to look at the development of this technique and how to stay up to date with the most relevant and most up to date information. So, how would you advise somebody who's interested in maintaining control over the latest developments in the CFO tech? How would you advise them to stay ahead of the curve, as it were?
Yeah, and I think we already discussed why this is necessary, but I can't stress this enough. You don't want to miss the ball here and kind of leave behind. I was recently at a conference, QuickBooks Connect in Las Vegas, because of a lot of our portfolio companies were there, and they asked how there was a room full with accountants, like 5,000 accountants or something, and they asked, please lift some hands who has used ChatGPT, and like half the room did it, and then who has used ChatGPT Premium, which you get access to 4 and all the plugins, and I think it was my hand and maybe 3 others, but this this is not smart, because to stay relevant, you have to adapt to these tools. So I think it's again, I can't stress enough, but how you're gonna get knowledge, and that's tough because every week there's something new. It's really hard to stay on, and for me that's almost like it's my profession to know it. So I'm sitting in all these podcasts, reading all these newsletters. But for an finance professional with a daytime job, doing real work, it can be hard and to kind of stay on top of it. I would, there are a number of influencers I could recommend. Maybe there's a way we can share them with their LinkedIn profiles after the podcast.
Oh, that's fine. I can put those if you give me those LinkedIn bios. Then I can put them in the show notes, and then the listener who is listening now, running to the park or driving his car, when you get home safely, then you can look at the show notes and click on those LinkedIn bios and check them out yourself.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I'll follow up with the names, but there's a number of people, and you can pick your own people as well. I would strongly recommend to follow on YouTube, on LinkedIn, Twitter, maybe, and they will summarize the relevant parts for finance. I think that's important, because if you're really trying to follow every small AI development that's happening right now, it's too overwhelming.
That's too much. I can imagine.
Yeah.
Definitely. So thing is that the developments are going pretty rapid, and there's a human part involved as well. So some time ago I was at an event, and there the innovative thing that they had there was like a metaverse experience where you could log on to the metaverse and they could show you around. So I'm a bit of an avid gamer myself, and they gave me this headset, and I thought, okay, well, they gave me the controllers, and I felt at home. So I was like, okay, I can do this. And they started explaining me how to walk. I mean, I've played games before, right? So I was jumping around through the room. I was already visiting 3 of the 4 rooms that they had prepared while they were telling me how to get up off my seat. And as I was reflecting that, I saw like within 10 seconds, I already knew more than they did. I figured out how to jump, and they didn't know that. And they figured out how to bring up an extra menu. And I think that a lot of young people are already familiar with a lot of these new developments that are in the market. And a lot of, with all due respect, older people are currently sitting in the workforce trying to adopt to these new technologies. Do you see this as an impactful item in the finance domain? Like, will you see the rise of young people adopting these new technologies a lot faster than the current workforce? And what do you expect the impact to be like in the next 10 years, Wouter?
For sure, young people will grow up with this, right? My kids still learn to do homework on ChatGPT, and although they might not be allowed to do so, the whole class is doing it. So, and that has a benefit from anyone who has grown up with a Commodore 64, for example, like me. So I guess, but what does that really mean? Well, we don't all have to be AI hackers in the future. I think. Of course, it helps if you can use them for basic tasks, and everyone can experiment with them. And the cool thing is probably we can grow with the adoption of the technology, because they're, like to my point before, if you don't know what to do something, you can just ask ChatGPT how to do it, and it will give you very clear instructions. If you don't understand them, then explain to me in a simpler way. Like just explain the context why you're not understanding it, and it will readjust and just explain it to you. So it has to probably also to do with certain level of interest in this, just being eager to learn it, to experiment with it. And if it's really tough to follow every detail, I would recommend any finance executive to at least try to completely follow this at the macro level. So, how does AI impact our economy, or like, our business world? What can it do for our company? What are the potential outcomes? I think that's really important to not completely miss it, because then at some point you don't recognize the company where you work for anymore. But yeah, newer generations will have an easier task to kind of adapt to this.
Yeah, I'm also thinking it will in the future our roles and function will still be the same. Like Wouter, you mentioned you worked for a couple of years as a CPM consultant. I'm doing that now, so I'm traditionally implementing a tool and helping my customers. But yeah, in the next 5, 10 years or 15 years, will I still be a CPM consultant, or will I be more a different type of consultant? That's stuff that's around my head at the moment. So I don't know if you have any ideas where it will go to.
Well, I guess, if you look at what a consultant does, it's guiding typically a company through change. There's a lot of change coming, and there will be change. So I think as a consultant, you're actually at a good spot. Honestly, I really think this is probably the place to be to kind of help companies evolve through their transition, and that will be a continuous job. So I really wouldn't worry if I were. Maybe I might go back one day, become a CPM consultant again.
You're always welcome to come to us, Wouter. No problem. Did I mention we are hiring?
Some things to mention here, like technology is constantly evolving, so you need people who are just studying that and stay up to date with it. Like complexities are increasing a lot, so you need just people who can follow that and can help companies out. I think, of course, as a consultant, you will have to. There's no choice. You cannot ignore all these technological developments. You need to educate yourself and take that serious. Another thing, I think it's also an opportunity to become much more strategic. In the time, and I was a consultant 20 years ago. We were doing a lot of report building, for example, and a lot of detailed repetitive tasks, or formula logic, and I don't know what, depending on what kind of project we were in. I think today you actually really have a chance to become more of a counterpart for the CFO, because you don't have to build all these details anymore. There's some AI that will do it for you, or some tool that doesn't require it anymore. So I think there is actually an opportunity to, as a CPM consultant, to become much more strategic, get more into, what do you really want to achieve with this system? What's really the output, and how can we help you become more of a business partner?
Well, that's a comforting thought, right, Ravi? So your job will still be around in a few years, so that's good.
Yeah, that's good, and it will be different, and I like that. Otherwise, it will get boring. So looking forward to it.
Yeah, we have a very short attention span, so
Yes.
it's good that we're constantly on the move. So mentioning these kinds of techniques and these you just mentioned formula scripting. So my brain went a little bit of a tangent there, but. So I'm working with some various CPM technologies, and one of them actually has their own scripting language. So I was trying ChatGPT the other day for this particular scripting language, and I couldn't find zilch for it, because of course there was nothing online. There was nothing the model can be trained on. So I think if you look at it from that perspective, the evolution of AI is only evolving in the items and in the areas where we already have developments. So if you would ask your ChatGPT something which is related to SQL, it will have plenty of opportunities. It will reference Stack Overflow, and you can just go nuts with it. But do you think that this new development of AI is actually removing creativity by only being trained in the items in which it was already trained? So everybody will shift towards existing technologies and nothing new will be coming? Or do you think
Sure.
this new technology is still has a chance somewhere, Wouter?
Yeah, well, I think the next version of ChatGPT should just ask you, hey, give me the documentation of that coding language, study on it, and give you the right guidance. I think one of the things that I think it's currently lacking, it's not really proactive. It doesn't really challenge. It doesn't really think out of the box. But if you would have done it on ChatGPT 4 and you would just give it documentation of your scripting language, it should do a pretty good job in guiding you how to build your scripts, and it can actually apply logic on something new that it just learned. So I don't think it's extremely limiting and kind of overemphasizing, the things that we all do. Of course, we run into a risk that today all content being published out there, well, not all, but a big part of the content that's being published comes from some kind of generative AI already. So the the errors that might might exist by something that's generated by AI, and then it will learn based on those errors, and you will, there's all kind of risks, I think, associated with that, and there's a lot of smart people thinking about how to avoid that. I don't necessarily see the risk of no more new developments as a big risk. I think people will use, maybe that custom scripting language shouldn't have existed in the first place. If someone would have asked ChatGPT, I need to build a scripting feature for my tool. So that's another way to look at it. Why did they build something custom here? But yeah,
Well, interesting to hear your perspective on that particular topic. So the last of the questions that that I prepared together with Ravi here is that we all know that larger companies are constantly evolving with mergers and developments. And how do you think these companies can embrace new technologies without getting stuck in their current processes? So how can they move forward without always having to take 3 steps back and get the people involved as well?
Yeah, it's tough. The bigger the company is, typically the less innovative you are, and it it results in, especially with older leadership, how are you gonna, take benefit from these current technological developments? Well, I think first of all, any company up to board level should realize why this is important. I think to stay ahead of competition, customers expect you to do it, to give them a better experience, and there's an efficiency and productivity gain that you will just need, to build stakeholder value, and for talent, for example, if you want to attract talent and you're a company that zero innovates, it's almost impossible. People think there's a shift in workforce. People will want to work for employers that are innovative. So I think the answer to this question is it's in leadership. You can think of 1,000 processes to embed innovation in the company, but I think it's a cultural thing, and it shouldn't happen somewhere lower in the organization. This is something that through all the layers of the organization and up to board meetings, it should be a topic. Are we maximizing our innovation in this company, and are we staying ahead of competition? Are we attracting talent the way we're doing it now? And I think once the culture is set and the leadership has a vision on innovation, I think everything else probably works through the organization more naturally, and then you'll figure out how to build the right processes around it, and how to avoid any kind of compliance issues and breaches. If everyone all of a sudden in the company starts using ChatGPT, which is known to not kind of protect your data and just use whatever data you load into it to train its next model, that's not something you might immediately want. So having some proper policies, and maybe someone in your you might need a chief whatever officer for this, like someone who's really reporting to the CEO and making sure you're doing it in the right way but maximizing the opportunity.
I think that's a really important part of our business as well. So most of our listeners are financial professionals, and you cannot, of course, just throw your finance data into your AI machine and ask it to make some good conclusions on it, because it will basically share your data with other people, and if that's not published data, then you're screwed. So I think that's something we have to look out for in the upcoming years as well. How does my solution protect my data, as it were, from the outside world, and make sure it works correctly with it?
Yeah, you have external data, but also your internal data. You want to keep that safe in your own data warehouse or own infrastructure, for example, but then use all kinds of external data that the AI engine can help you with. So we should find a way how we can make that happen.
I think that's up to
unfortunately, there are good enterprise solutions for this already. ChatGPT Enterprise is much better in protecting your data. It's not widely accessible. It's not something I could get, for example, as a small company. But then there is, alternatives like Claude. They are they're SOC 2 Type 2 certified, so they really protect your data, and it makes things much easier from a compliance perspective. But as a company, you should realize both the opportunity and the risk of deploying AI in a company.
So it all boils down, I think, to leadership, and also being sensible in what you adopt and what you do not adopt, and make sure that you don't expose your company towards unnecessary risks. With that closing thought, I think we are almost running out of time. So I would very much like to thank the both of you, with your especially you, Wouter, for taking your time all the way from New York to call into our podcast. So thanks a lot, Wouter, and thanks a lot, Ravi. And this was the next episode also from Forward Finance, our podcast. If you have some questions about today's content, you can always email us at podcast@finext.nl. which will also be in the show notes, just like the influencer bios that Wouter is going to deliver to us. So yeah, thank you very much, and we would like to see you again in the next episode.